Here.
Priya Serene, absent. Christopher Wyatt.
Here.
Here, you respond.
Do we have any visitor comments?
No visitor comments at this time.
Can I get a solicitor?
Do you want to?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
For purposes of executive session, the facility committee had an executive session on 6/6 for the purpose of discussing possible litigation. The board had an executive session on 6/12 for safety and security issues as well as possible litigation. The board had an additional executive session tonight also to discuss possible litigation and safety and security issue. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the board minutes, May 22nd, and also the workshop minutes of June 12th? Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor? Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. We're going to skip the superintendent curriculum. Actually, we're going to skip down to business and finance. So we are going to be doing section 8 first. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Pepe.
Thank you. Okay, so first up is the bills list. This month, we're looking at 1.3 million on the regular bills list, which is pretty much in keeping. If you notice going through, there was a rather large number with the Amazon order, and I think it was around 55% of that represented one thing, and that was CLEP testing computers. That was $28,861 of the $50,000 that was assigned to Amazon. That actually represents 50 computers at $577 a computer, and that was part of the best pricing that our tech department came up with. The other 54% comes to about $711,000. That was made up of Brandywine transportation coming in at 312. Also Norman's transportation 184. Those are typical with where we are in this point of the year. HSA was $10,000 you'll see in there. That's for boiler services, and that represented 4 schools, Liberty Bell, the intermediate school, middle school, and high school, to come up to the aggregate of $10,000. Integra One is a tech purchase, $205,000. That's part of our E-rate provider network, and that's for switches, routers, and other network devices that were necessary in that respect. The rest of the bills list is pretty much just standard fare. There's any questions?
I just had one. What is I. Miller Precision Optical? What is that? The optical.
That one I do not recall. I would have to get back to you.
Is that microscopes? I would guess that Mr. Miller might be agreeing there that
Okay.
they probably microscopes.
Yeah, that was kind of an oddball. I just wondered. Thanks.
Yeah, and that you're probably right because I don't recall it. Okay, outside of the bills list, we have a lot of items in here, but most of this we've kind of already gone through. Treasurer's report, investment report, again, continues to just be going very, very well in our direction, in our favor. Approval for the public library, again, that's another quarterly payment. That's the last quarter of this year that was budgeted for. Final adoption of the general fund budget. Nothing has changed. We have not made any changes since the budget was approved. So we have the actual adoption, the levying of the millage rate, which is not going up. We're keeping that flat, and the various 511 taxes. Also with that is the homestead farmstead resolution that's annually adopted. Moving forward, I have the approval of depositories for investment of funds. That hasn't changed. Actually, we've simplified that by taking some of the banks that we really were not getting any interest from and didn't have a lot of monies on account with and moved it into QNB. In QNB, we're currently at about 4.75, which is a pretty good place to be. Also, I have the insurance policies. I think I sent in-depth update on those lines of coverage from the commercial package policy, the umbrella liberty, or I'm sorry, the umbrella liability policy with Utica and also auto insurance. Item H is workers' comp. Again, we're running very well in the school district consortium that we belong to there. Student accident insurance, that we actually were able to achieve a zero increase this year. And they're adding a different carrier for the voluntary portion that gives individuals more options if they want to have less coverage for a lesser premium or more coverage for a higher premium. And again, that's strictly voluntary. Um, Copier lease, we had a presentation on, so I'm not going to bother you with that, other than we saved even more money from when we presented it. So that has come down slightly. And the way we were able to save was simply not getting readers for for each of the units, since we're not ready with the technology at this point. So why lease it? We could always add them after the fact when we're there, and we're probably about a year or so out from that. Um, Cafeteria price list, we're holding all the prices. There's no increases on any of those. We're keeping them the same as last year. High school art and science bids, again, they continue every single year, and there's a lot of work that happens at the high school, and also our staff accountant and our purchasing person. Gatsby 87 and 96 debt book lease. This came to us from our new auditor. The GASB regulations are hitting this year that is going to be audited, so we need to prep properly. What I can tell you is I worked with debt book to negotiate down the rates from where they thought they were going to come in, which were a lot higher. And we are now not only in line with peer districts, but I think we're one of the leads as far as getting the most for the least contribution. And that's pretty much where we're at.
And Lou, could you explain what that is for people
Sure.
that may not know?
Um, what happens is GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, from time to time will come out with new regulations that all financial people in the industry have to follow. GASB versus FASB. FASB would be the Financial Accounting Standards Board. Because we're a government entity, we fall under GASB. GASB pronouncements came out 87 and 96. 87 strictly deals with leases and trying to ensure the public has more information through the audit. So any leases that we're involved in have to be put through a scheduled test to determine whether or not it's something that's worth being in the audit. If there's any materiality, is usually what the auditors will say. And then we have to disclose like we do with our bonds. So that'll be covered under GASB 87. GASB 96, that one is Sabita's. It's what the heck, subscription-based IT services. So anytime you get an annual subscription and you start having renewals, or if you have a multi-year subscription, then we have, again, a litmus test to determine, is it multi-year or is it an annual? If it's a multi-year, it's got to be recorded and put into another schedule in the audit. The auditor has determined a threshold of $20,000, not just our auditor, but another auditing firm that presented to the Lehigh Valley of $20,000. So if we have these agreements that are under $20,000, they do not need to be reported. If they're over $20,000, they need to report it. And thirdly is whether or not it passes muster for an intergovernmental agreement. A good example of that would be e-tax tracks. So we send out all of our tax bills through e-tax tracks, which is a software platform that we procure those services through Berks IU. So since they're an IU, it's considered intergovernmental, and we would not have to put that into the schedule. What we need to do is first come up with all of these Sabitas and determine what meets, and then whatever is determined to meet that, we have to do all the background investigation of supplying the contract, the terms, and we give all this to this company, Debt Book, who's going to put this all together so it's compliant, and then we get it back so we can deliver it to the auditor. And it's quite complicated, but again, this will be our initial year going in to get a baseline. Once we get the baseline, then we'll determine whether or not we want to continue to utilize the service. Is that helpful? Okay.
I think some of the efforts that the administrators went through with, remember we kind of inventoried all of the different educational subscriptions that we had. Because I think part of this is that after the pandemic, there was just this explosion everywhere of all these sign-on leases for software and services. And so we actually, in advance of even learning about this, had a bit of a head start as we were inventorying what it is we were using in the district. So I think it's a very good thing for us to do it. It's a direct result of our new auditor coming in and giving us some updated information. So we thank you for your work.
Mhm.
Do we have any other comments or questions? I'll ask that again, but, okay, so what we're going to do is I will take the motions contained in section 8, A through M, with the exception of D. And slow motion, folks. So moved, Kyle.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaiman. No more comments or questions? Without that, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, those motions are approved. Now we'll move on to 8, D, which has to do with the budget. So this is the final adoption of the budget. Mr. Pepe, do you have anything you would like to share?
No, Madam President, as I stated, at this point, nothing has changed as far as where we were and what we had presented. We are still looking at having no increase in the millage this year. We're going to keep it flat, and we feel we have a very good budget that was presented.
If I could just, this could be my superintendent's report because I mentioned it, I was going to mention this in my superintendent's report, but I do want to thank the board, the administration, our students, Mr. Pepe and all in his office.
Mic on.
Okay. For the tremendous amount of work that went into this year's budget. We present this budget with a great amount of confidence in that we are confident that it will meet our needs. We are very excited over the results of what the current budget that we're in. And we also are excited over the fact that we're not asking any additional taxes from our taxpayers. So this is one of those occasions where, this budget is good news. It's good news for our district. It's good news for our community. And I'm very grateful for all who worked and participated in putting it together. And thank you, Mr. Pepe, for your leadership.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to need to take a motion for each of these separately and a roll call for 1A. So can I have a motion for the budget adoption?
So moved.
24, Mr. Maud? Ms. King? Any further questions or comments? Okay, we're going to need a roll call for this.
Jeffrey Dinning. Absent.
Absent.
Kyle Gangler.
No.
Emily Damon.
Yes.
Nicole King.
Yes.
William Lysette.
Yes.
Stephen Maud.
Aye.
Mary Jo Reimer.
Yes.
Priya Serene.
Absent.
Absent. Christopher Ware.
Yes, he says. Okay, the budget for 2023 is approved. Thank you, Mr. Pepe and Dr. Main. Motion for levying of millage. Can I get a motion? Oh, Dr. Wayoff,
Second.
Mr. Maud, second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Wait,
Go ahead.
could you explain that a little bit?
The levying of the millage?
Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Pepe?
Sure. Basically, in addition to approving the budget, we have to have a special resolution on the millage whether or not we're increasing against the 4.1 that we could increase, and we're at 0, no increase on the millage.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that's approved. And the last is leveling of the various 511 taxes. Motion? Ms. Gangwer? Mr. Wayok, second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that's approved as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So let's go back to
Before you-
section 4.
Excuse me, I just wanted to acknowledge the administration as well for their work on this budget. There's a lot of work that goes into this and a lot of picking through a lot of very detailed information to figure out where and what should be and should not be in the budget. It was extensive work over the past 12 months. And in my discussions with the administration, I saw that along the way. So I just wanted to make one more special acknowledgement of their hard work to make this budget work and to get us moving forward in the years to come in a very consolidated and organized way. So thank you for that.
Dr. Mann, your superintendent's report, do you have anything additional?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Reinhardt. Just two brief things. In the fall or in the late spring, we're always sad to see talented educators move on to retirement. But tonight, after a great amount of work from our administration in the selection process, we're very excited to be welcoming new and talented administrators to the school district. So it is a very exciting aspect of tonight. And on the sadder side of things, I do want to acknowledge Mr. Pigeon, Tony Pigeon, his fine work in the district, and recognize that tonight is his last board meeting, and he will soon be moving on at the end of the month. And I do want to take this occasion to thank you, Tony, for all of your work and your devotion to the district and its students. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Reinhardt. That concludes my report.
In section 5, we have quite a bit of information here. We can take this together. So we would be taking 5A through 5M, unless our solicitor has any recommendations to do otherwise.
Could I ask?
Just let me finish. Before we go ahead and make motions or a motion for those collectively, I would like to hear if anybody has comments or questions. Mrs.
Yes,
Damon?
I would ask that items be, what?
I'm sorry, Chris is trying to talk at the same time as you, Emily.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't hear what you said. Okay, so how about, shall we have Mrs. Geemans
Yeah, if he could
do
mute
her,
himself.
do her comment? And Chris, if you could mute, we'll come right back to you. That's okay?
Before we got into discussion, I realized that procedure would be a motion in a second and then discussion. Before that motion occurred, I would just ask that we remove items B, C, and D. And I'd be willing to make the motion of 5A through, I believe it's M. But I would ask that B, C, and D be taken separately. And I'm willing to make that motion so we can get ourselves to discussion.
Okay.
Right, can
Chris, she's suggesting that we pull out items under 5, B, C, and D to act on them separately.
You want to act on each separately?
No, so I make a motion that we act on items 5A through M, and then excluding items B, C, and D. And I would ask that then I'd be willing to make a subsequent motion once we voted on those, that we take B, C, and D in one motion.
Can I ask why?
Yes, because I intend to vote one way on some and one on the other.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And
appreciate
I just want to say, well, we're not to comment yet, so I will reserve my comment for when we get to that point. All right, so now are we to the comment point that I wanted? A motion in a second. Are we to comments?
Well, you were motioning to make a change for how we were going to motion.
Mm.
So at this point, I think what we'll do is I'll just revise it and we will take 5A.
No.
I think you can just call for the vote for all of 5 except for B, C, and D.
Right, that's the motion and the second on the
That was
floor.
the motion in the second.
I think there's a few ways to say it which are acceptable. So we'll take a motion for 5A, E through M.
So moved.
Ms. Gaiman? Ms. Gangwer? Second? We have no second?
I think, Dr. Wayak I think Dr. Wayak said second. Am I correct, Dr. Wayak? You said second?
Are there comments or questions on those motions?
I'll then jump to my comment. I just want to thank administration for providing I asked for this to be taken separately. I want to thank building administration, central administration for providing the student handbooks well in advance of this meeting to the board so that we could look over them and have questions. I have read through all of them. Unfortunately, my summer plans didn't allow me to do so until this weekend, this Friday. And so I have some questions and concerns that out of respect to them, I just didn't have a chance to get to, and I would like to take those items separately. That's why I wanted to lift them out. That was my only explanation, but I wanted to thank them sincerely for getting all that information to us. It's on me that I didn't get to read it until the weekend to consult or ask the questions I had.
Other comments or questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We're in favor of the motion 5A and then E through M. We're voting on
So we're not
those
having
with
a
the
vote.
Not the
exception
handbook.
of.
We're not having a vote to remove the handbooks or not to remove the.
No, we're just voting.
Taking those separately, Mr. Lysette. So all in favor, 5A, E through M.
Aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, those motions are approved. Now let's go to 5B, C, and D as Ms. Gaiman requested.
So moved.
Okay, comments or questions, please? Mr. Wayock has a comment. Okay.
Specifically, I just wanted to comment on the high school handbook under class students. So I see that the class students have increased to $50 per class.
Wait a second,
Wait.
Mr. Wayock, Dr. Wayock, there's a lot of background noise and it's very hard to hear you. Can you try again?
I can't hear. Could we do something? I just can't hear him at all. And he can't hear us because
Dr. Wayak, pardon me, Dr. Wayak, we're having a very hard time. The transmission is a bit garbled. We're having a very hard time hearing what it is you're saying.
Background noise.
It appears to be maybe some background noise or garbled transmission that board members are not able to decipher what is being said.
you can let him know whatever he did is just got worse, if that helps him. That's my only advice. Like whatever he obviously changed something.
If you would care to text us, now it's almost as bad. We have a very hard time hearing at all, but if you can hear us, if you had a text you'd like us to read, we could do that perhaps.
Okay, let's move on. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Ms. Gaiman?
I'm just on those 3 handbook items. They're just some items that I think specifically have come out throughout the years, and we just didn't get a chance to get to them as a board, and I don't feel comfortable approving those personally. For instance, one of the items that occurred to me in those is like our kids wouldn't be able to, as is currently written, to wear their Dare T-shirts in school for like a.
I'm having a hard time understanding you because I think your mic is a little too close to your mouth. So if you could.
Is any you're having difficulty understanding me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So there were just some items in those handbook items that I did that problems that came up throughout the year and concerns voiced by students and parents that I didn't feel comfortable voting on those handbooks. I appreciate the work that put into them. I just wished we had gotten to those this year, and so personally, I'm just going to vote no on those 3 items.
Do you have
Could you hear me?
Yes, do you have specific recommendations for improvement or change?
Yeah, I will, and I will absolutely reach out to administrators. They provided this a week in advance. I think there are some dress code issues that came up throughout the year that students raised to this board, and I think there are also some just internally consistent between the buildings transition issues. I would just like to see more consistency and also some issues raised specifically with dress code, and I just didn't get a chance to get to them. I would happily go through them. I just didn't think tonight would be. I wanted to move things along. I didn't want to drag the board through my explanation, but I'm happy to do so. Would you like me to?
Well, that's why we're having a meeting.
Okay. In that case, in those handbooks, the elementary handbook I saw was the language was pared down and was concise. And I appreciate that 2 elementaries have 1 handbook. Specifically, in those 3 handbooks, there was, for instance, earlier in the year, I'm a representative on the IU board, and the CLIU and other districts in the covered by IU in Carbon County and in Lehigh County have made an effort to, when writing their policies and handbooks, to eliminate references to, when possible, pronouns in general, because we have all had our fill of discussing pronouns at board meetings. And so the districts in Carbon and Lehigh counties that I've talked to through the IU and also the IU itself, and I mentioned this at a meeting they're making an effort to, and I believe in some of our policies that we went over with Mr. Pigeon, we did eliminate the he, she references where possible, because none of us, we want to hear, we are here, we want to talk about education, we don't want to talk about that. And so some of those things were done, for instance, in the elementary handbook, but they were not in those 3 handbooks. So that's my one concern. My other concern is in dress code, specifically with those 3 schools. I know students and parents throughout the year, and when they spoke here, had raised concerns about the way in which our dress code in those buildings is currently written in those handbooks. It states that students may not wear anything that references, not supports, I mean, also supports, but references drugs or violence. So my kid was given a DARE t-shirt when they went through the DARE program, the IS, which is a great program. But according to the technical way that was written, our student wouldn't be able to wear their DARE t-shirt at the IS, the middle school and the high school. It was addressed in the elementary handbook, which is why I voted already yes to approve that. That's one item. Another item in those 3 handbooks dress codes addresses that students may not wear items dealing with sex or sexuality. So if kids are shopping at Target and they want to wear a rainbow shirt because they bought that during Pride Month, our student handbook would not allow that to be worn as currently written. And that was an issue at the high school and middle school this year. An email went out to remind students of appropriate dress. And there was quite the uproar in the secondary student population about that. And it just wasn't addressed here. And I don't fault anyone for that. I just, I know it's something we're working on. We didn't get there yet. And I'd like personally to see it addressed. I believe there was also a line in our dress code about we want this to be in general. I really appreciate the handbook's effort to state that this is going to be a welcoming environment, and we welcome and want all individuals to feel safe and welcome, and we respect all creeds and religions and celebrate and respect and have those represented equally throughout our population and our buildings. But I think there was a line in there that I feel uncomfortable with given recent news articles with relation to Saucon Valley High School, and we had concerns parents talking about what our policies state about satanic, and that's referenced in the dress code, and I'd like to see it removed. Those are the highlights in my mind about what I saw with those 3 that concerned me the most, and why I'm voting no.
I have a question. So the way it's written right now, Emily, are you saying that a middle school or a high school cannot wear a shirt with a rainbow on it? Is that what you said?
Our and I'll pull it up. I was trying to pull it up. My computer is being a little slow, so let me click on the link. I can get to it relatively quickly. I'll go to my. It's not. There we go. Now I have it loading. So if you click on, well, the three are. There's some discrepancy in the language between the three, but they all basically state the same thing, which is if someone figures out what page the dress code is on, I'm just scrolling at this point.
Did you say students got in trouble this year for wearing rainbows?
No, I'm saying the dress code states that they may not. And
wear
if-
rainbows.
Here we go. Okay. Clothing or jewelry that promotes or makes reference to satanic activity. Clothing or jewelry that promotes or makes reference to weapons, violence. That's where the DARE t-shirt, drugs. That's where the DARE t-shirt comment came in. Clothing or jewelry that promotes or makes reference to weapons, violence, gang affiliation, sex, sexism, sexuality, and or ethnic or racial prejudices. Now, clothing or jewelry. So, for instance, a reminder was sent out to middle school and high school, seasonally, which is a very appropriate and good thing to do. Remind kids when seasons change what the appropriate dress code is. But students read that and giving the changing times and headlines brought up to each other that clothing or jewelry that promotes sex or sexuality would include an LGBTQ pride shirt. And as this is currently written, they would not be allowed to wear that. It also, recent headlines, we've become aware that it references satanic activity. And I don't want to see what happened at Saucon happen here. And I would rather not reference something that someone would think of as a religion to forbid it in our and I don't think the administration, this is something that has existed for years and times change. And, this is just, there aren't any changes. It's not that dress code change from year to year, but our society and the way in which we read these sentences and the way in which kids approach and think about these things is what has changed. And I would just personally like to see those changed before I vote to approve the handbook through no fault of anyone's but my own for not reaching out to principals and administration before this to voice that, because I'm sure if I would have said something, they would have considered it. I was on vacation and did not get a chance to do that. It also says clothing that is revealing or skin tight. When I think of clothing that is revealing or skin tight, I don't think of boys, I think of girls. And I'd also like to see a way of that to be rephrased. I think the reason I voted yes to the elementary handbook is because I think it does a very good job, probably through the simplification of language, to help our elementary students understand the expectations. I think some great changes were made there. I just would like to see those changes consistently made in the other handbooks. And I understand folks had other things to do. Those, I believe, were my dress code concerns, in addition to the elimination of using words like student, child, parent, parents, instead of he, she. Those are the reasons why I'll be voting no for this. And hopefully I'm sure it's something we'll be addressing in the future in the next handbook. There's always room for improvement. And I have no doubt that this will be a work in progress as our perception of those things change and as we move forward in understanding each other as a community and what our students perceive and think of and need. But that's why I can't vote yes to this tonight. And I did not feel it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gaiman.
Well, I
appreciate your
didn't-
comments.
I just wanted to say that I didn't feel that it was appropriate to ask for this to be tabled or to hold up the rest of the board in voting on a handbook.
I
So
understand. Okay, so I've lost track. Did I ask for a motion for 5B, C, and D?
Yes.
Okay, so we're into and wait a
Yes,
second.
and do you want to see if Dr. Ware,
Okay, did Dr. Wayock, so Ms.
Dr.
Gaiman
Dr.
has
Ware,
some
do you-
comments?
right.
Go ahead.
Dr. Ware, do you want to try to see, we'll see if we can come through this time?
Sure. Are you able to hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, actually, yes, I think so.
Right, okay. So I have, my comment specifically was in the high school handbook. The class dues I saw did increase. Each class is $50. Specifically, I had concerns about no exception, financial exception for those students with financial hardship.
Okay.
It said report cards will not be issued to students who have not met their financial obligations. Seniors with unpaid obligations will not be allowed to participate in graduation exercises. I would like to see some type of exception in there for those students with financial hardships. I do not want $50 for a class dues to prevent any students from participating in graduation or participating in.
We completely agree with that, Dr. Wayok.
Could you please just repeat? I think I caught most
I
of
don't know.
that.
I had a hard time hearing Emily. I heard a little bit here and there, but I didn't know if she wanted. She thought it was appropriate to promote for students to promote sexuality at the elementary school or the IS in the handbook. I know there was a number of. I read through all the handbook, and there were. Essentially, students are not to wear clothing that promoted sexuality, and I didn't know if you came in with wanting there to be that allowance for elementary school students to promote sexuality. Was that the basic premise of her question?
What?
Okay, so I think what Mr. Dr. Wayek is trying
I,
to
I'm
say.
sorry. I'm really trying.
I don't think it's funny, and I think.
No,
Dr.
it's not
Wayek-
funny. I am not laughing at Dr. Wack. I'm
Let me
laughing at
finish
this
talking, Mrs.
situation.
Damon. I'm going to clarify for you. So I think what Dr.
It's-
Wayok is saying is that, are you implying that in the elementary student handbook, that there is the ability for students to express sexuality through their clothing?
Okay, that's what I heard a bit.
I'm going to ask the administration to respond to that because I think they worked on the handbooks. Do you have an answer to that?
Right.
No, he was asking, I did hear him ask if what I was saying was that I think elementary students should be able to express their own sexuality in elementary school. So I would like the opportunity to address that after, by all means, address that from the administrative level first, but I would like to respond.
And one of the in speaking about dress code broadly, one of the challenges administration faces always, and it has always been this way, is to translate words into a reasonable response to a student who comes before us with a question about what is being worn, and understanding that there may be ways to improve each particular line or certain phrasing. What I can say is that in a broad way, those are very broad statements of a general sense of decorum, how to dress, and I think they empower administrators to be able to look at a particular way a student comes and presents in school, and to offer guidance and feedback to parents and the student about, because there's a certain degree of appropriateness that must be present in our buildings with respect to student dress. I think that in reading those very broad restrictions, they are reasonable in their approach, and we are not looking to, for example, tell a student they can't wear a Dare shirt. All right, but we may be saying that if you come in with a shirt that is promoting methamphetamine or something like that, then certainly we would say that would not be something we'd want to see in our classrooms. But we would certainly draw a distinction, and recognizing administration would be the ones drawing it based upon the policy, to say that some things are very reasonable and other things are not, and it is for our principals to be drawing those lines as they are informed by the policy with practical students standing before them.
Totally agree. And which is why I think I appreciate the language that was adopted at the elementary level that allows administration and outlines that exact premise. Obviously, we want students, and obviously students are allowed to wear their Dare t-shirts, and obviously students are allowed to wear, LGBTQ pride t-shirts to represent themselves at the secondary level. we allow that, which is why I think it should be reflected in our handbook, and it currently is not. The elementary handbook does a very nice job of outlining how the administration obviously has the final and best say about what is and is not appropriate in the classroom. But in the elementary handbook, it does that without singling out, and in fact has stricken newly this year those items that I previously read. It says that students should wear clothing and footwear in school that is safe, fitting for the season and learning environment, and the following should not be worn. And then it lists things that are, should not be worn, like rolling shoes and athletic cleats, and flip flops aren't appropriate for recess, and cleats aren't appropriate for the building. It explains hats, hoods, and heads coverings very well. But it does make changes that address the concerns I have while still maintaining the administration's ability to, dictate and help kids learn what is and is not appropriate in a learning setting and in a professional setting. So, and to address what I believe, I was having a great deal of difficulty with Dr. Wack, hearing what he was saying, but no, Chris, obviously I do not think sexuality should be expressed in an elementary school. I'm not advocating for the sexualization of our kids in any way. I'm advocating for their ability to wear their DARE t-shirts, and that they understand when a rule is written, we follow that rule. Because as the rule is currently written, we can do a better job with this language. We ask kids to be precise in their writing in classrooms, and so I think we can be precise. The elementary handbook did it, and that's the only reason I was hoping to avoid this whole conversation by saying, I just didn't have time, and I would like to say no, but I'm glad we did have time to discuss this. I think it's an important issue. But no, Dr. Wack, I do not intend to sexualize children, nor do I think it's appropriate for them to wear skin-tight sexual clothing. The elementary handbook, if you read it, addresses all of the items of concern that administrators and teachers should be addressing and teaching our kids are and are not appropriate, without using language that excludes things like DARE t-shirts and LGBTQ pride t-shirts. Or religious t-shirts for that matter.
Ms. Rice, I do want to offer my support for Dr. Wayock's position on any fees that would prevent students from graduating or that kind of thing. So if the board were to approve this document tonight as it's written, we would look at to ensure that that spirit of not excluding people for a financial penalty would be very much part of our approach to the implementation of the words in the handbook.
Wait, that was financial penalty for students in need, right? Not for just everybody.
No, right. For, as for
At risk.
at risk, or as if challenges come up and someone has a hard time, we will approach that issue very compassionately.
And maybe I'm stating the obvious, but it's been a long-standing practice of this district that any student that has a financial need that's documented, and usually it's the free and reduced lunch is kind of a marker for that, amongst other things, that their athletic fees, participation fees, and I would have assumed class dues all are waived for those individual students. So I guess there's a question of practice that takes place versus what's in the handbook when it comes to those particular students. And it's always been handled, to my knowledge, very discreetly, that no one knows, so that that student is not put in a position that might be awkward.
And that to the extent that has happened, it will continue to happen, Mr. Lysette, for sure.
I did have, Bill, that's been my understanding as well, and I think a great job has been done at that. I did have a concern about, recently came up with the summer school that has recently started, the online summer school programs that students take, particularly at the secondary level, for either acceleration or remediation if a child needs a class to pass. I believe, Bill, that policy is stated that those with free and reduced lunch and other financial needs those fees for classes are not waived. I was kind of surprised to see that the exception there was they will pay 50%, but it's still 50% of about $250 bill. And so I would ask that as we are looking to keep those, doors and opportunities open to all students and being sensitive to the financial needs of student populations. That, in addition to things like class dues that Dr. Wayak very appropriately addressed, not be an impediment to graduation or receiving a report card. And just like Mr. Lysette said, athletic fees and other fees, I would ask that we look at offering those online, and summer opportunities to students in that financial situation also free of charge instead of at a reduction. Is there a way to look into that? Or, I mean, when you're looking at the handbook issue of the $50 class due, can we look at the fees for putting something in place in that handbook that addresses fees for all kids in all fee type academic and
would just
athletic
have to look at
situations?
that.
Sure.
I'm not familiar with how the online courses are paid for, and I know that they're offered on rare exception. So I'm just not, I don't know. I would have to look
Okay.
at it.
If we could look into that at the same time, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions regarding the handbooks in B, C, and D? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed?
I'm opposed. No.
Ms. Gaiman's opposed? Okay, the handbooks are approved. Let's move on to special education and student services. We have a letter of agreement for student assistance program liaison services for the Center for Humanistic Change. It's a renewal contract. Motion? Mr. Wayock, second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, that's approved. Let's take technology, number 7.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Those are approved. Let's move to support services, section 9. Okay,
Second.
so we have who moved? Ms.
Gangware.
Gangware? Mr. Lysette, second. She asked me to slow motion over there. Do we have any comments or questions for Mr. Pepe regarding these support services on transportation, gasoline, building solutions, athletic fields of America, new district vehicle? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Sports service motions are approved. And I'm going to ask Mr. Pidgeon for his last meeting. Thank you very much for your time here
Thank you.
with us at Southern Lehigh School District to present any concerns or comments you have regarding the Human Resources Report.
So the Human Resources Report this evening is a rather large report because we are also incorporating the extracurricular activities individuals for the fall, mentors of certified staff, subject area leaders, along with our 8 certified staff individuals who are being appointed, 5 classified staff members being appointed. We have 2 retirements on the agenda. One is an individual, an IA from the intermediate school, 8 years of service, Teresa Stauffer, and the other one is Carol Beck, 46 years of service to Southern Lehigh School District as a secretary at the middle school. So, yeah. And there's a couple of resignations on here also, along with the retirements. So does anybody have any questions or comments about the HR report?
I have a question. Can we get an overview? I was not anticipating or really know much about the tech/STEM support teacher. Well, can we just get a rundown of what that position is?
The position itself or the person?
The position.
It's a tech position at the high school, here at the high school. We're replacing someone. It was a very difficult position to replace. So we had, off the top of my head, I know they had 3 viable applicants through the process. And then the individuals did not pan out. So we went with the first choice is the one that we're going with. And you'll see that's at a higher rate than typically what we're given because of the hard to fill. I'll refer to Mr. Miller in the back if you want specifics on the actual coursework.
Well, I guess part of my question then would lead to it. Do we anticipate that this position is going to be doing some of the work that our prior tech guys were doing,
No,
or this
no,
is just a
this is
completely
separate
different,
position.
separate?
It's separate position. It was one that was already filled within the district. It's a replacement.
Okay.
So this is somebody who is be working with the tech skills with the students and some STEM activities.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion?
Only my only comment is that I believe Carol Beck is wonderful, and we wish her the best. And I think someone else now takes on the title of the longest employee of the most years at Southern Lehigh. I'm not sure who that is, but I know it was Carol,
It was Carol, yes.
and she is now leaving us. So someone else now holds that title, but we wish her the best.
There's also a authorization for the superintendent to fill vacancies since there are no meetings in July moving forward. So Dr. Mann can fill vacancies with and then we'll present them to the board after the fact. And there's an affiliation agreement with Gwinnett Mercy University for interns, so on and so forth, all under the HR report, A, B, and C.
Thank you for that awesome final report.
Okay, can I have a motion? Ms. Gangware? Mr. Lysette, second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the HR motions are approved. Do we have any committee reports?
Not a committee, but a representative of the IU. I just wanted to let folks know that the IU board meeting had a great presentation from Salisbury High School Multidisabilities classroom. And they have it's called Suds Ability Business, where they right? They've heard of this? They manufacture soap, and the students in that classroom, in that IU classroom of multiple disabilities, manufacture and sell soap. And the proceeds are donated back to those same kids for activities. So they see the financial benefit of their work, and they truly have adaptive technology to allow kids to manufacture and make and take pride in applying labels to soap and mixing soap. And it was just a wonderful presentation. So when the school year kicks off again and Salisbury High School Multidisabilities Classroom starts making soap again, I would encourage you all to look into it for your gift giving ideas, because we got a sample and they're wonderfully smelling, and they're a fantastic product. And so Salisbury High School kids make soap. It's a great thing. Look into it. Suds Ability is their business. That's all I have from the IU. At the high school? They're high school age. I mean, I'm not sure of their age range because kids in the multidisability.
Can you report on any of the student work experience activities in any of the high schools that are participating in the IU?
Can I, sorry, could you repeat that?
The student
Could
work
you, in the mic?
experiences, the student work experiences, did the IU talk about any of the student work experiences? Real work experiences.
Real work? Well, this is real work.
They're not getting paid. I'm talking about students getting paid for actual work.
The IU for actual work.
Mhm.
All right. I would argue this is real work. These kids take great pride. And it's a great achievement for those kids and those parents in those
that's wonderful.
classrooms.
There
However,
there are initiatives out there that are engaging high schoolers to get jobs that actually pay money to that individual so that they engage in an employment activity
And
very
MJ,
early on.
be-
Which is
I-
great.
I know Salisbury. The students that are making the soap are severely disabled
Mm,
students. They're not. They're severely disabled.
okay,
So
wonderful. I'm glad you're
however,
doing that.
I'll address that question. The IU has multiple programs. The IU's,
I was just wondering if you had any knowledge on the student work experience programs in the IU.
I do.
Okay.
The IU IEPs, some students IEPs, some students graduation requirements, those in Southern Lehigh High School, are to meet certain state standards. And individuals who have IEPs, such as those served through the IU programs, they meet graduation requirements by meeting goals. And the IU's goals for their students are all about giving these students places in our community to work after graduation. Now, these students with IEPs can be educated until the age of at least 21. And depending on the needs of the student, the IU has different levels of work opportunities. They, for instance, sometimes their classrooms are not classroom settings where the students sit in the classroom and learn. Math and reading and writing per se, they learn skills. For instance, in students in that multi-disabilities class, we're learning to apply stickers to products. It's a position that they could potentially hold in the future. They were learning how to organize into bins, and the IU has different levels. One level could be that they send students out into the workforce, much like we have high school students who go out into the workforce in their junior and senior years, or perhaps through our technical program with LCTI. The IU has a program where those students are employed in stores, grocery stores, community businesses, and they partner with those businesses to provide those internships. They also have opportunities for students to learn life skills. So, for instance, to achieve the idea of, and sometimes you often see folks escorting and teaching students in our community in our stores. I've been to Target, I've been to Giant, and I've seen these teachers who are teaching class in those community settings to help kids adapt to making a grocery list and going out and buying those groceries. Daily activities that allow them to perhaps live independently or live in a group home. I would be happy at the next meeting if you'll put me on the agenda to report back on all of that. I'm sure the IU individuals who run those programs will be happy to spread the word about that because it makes great partnerships in our community. But those programs are actually specifically designed around getting kids who are differently abled a leg up and a place to learn a job in our community and learn a skill so that when they graduate, they have work or a group home or a group setting where they can achieve greatness and to the best of their ability have pride in the work that they do. It is all real work.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaiman, and thank you, Ms. Gangler, for your information. Do we have any new business or other business?
Quick update on facilities. The administration touched upon most of it, but at the last facilities meeting, which I think was the 6th, if I remember correctly. I thought it was. It's on. We got an update on, of course, the stadium project, and everything is moving to the right timelines to still be using the field by August. And also the brickwork at the IS has begun. And we also talked about the roof and the plans for the roof repairs to be in next year's, kind of next summer's potential plans. And the it's IE, correct? Or EI, excuse me, went out to Liberty Bell and made a thorough, investigation of the roof structure. Everything is, exactly as you would expect as far as structural. It's not going to fail. And that report has been put up on the district's website that any of the public that would like to review it can. And also the stadium updates are up there. And I think, if I remember correctly, you've also put up the report around the brickwork and what we're doing, if I recall. Maybe not. Okay. All right. But everything's moving very well with their plans over the summer for the major projects. And as you can see, as you walk into the building, the small things are being taken care of, like waxing the floors and all that too. So it's very good work, and the administration has been doing exceptional, planning and, more importantly, execution on the facilities needs that we have.
Thanks for the facility committee report. I appreciate it, Bill.
Just 1 to 2 minutes here on LCTI since I haven't reported for a while.
Sure.
There is a new director at LCTI, Dr. Lisa Greenewald, who was previously director of curriculum, I believe. She's in the process, along with the staff there, making a lot of changes regarding data feedback in how to enhance the operations as well as the curriculum. So there are some consolidations and realignments that are happening in the programs, I think, for the better, to make more use of the operation and also to improve curriculum offerings to the students. The other key item that I would emphasize is that they've now started fifth grade student tours at LCTI. The earlier, the better. They had a very outstanding participation in that. If I were to remember, I believe it was around 4,000 students countywide in fifth grade that took tours of LCTI. So that gives, I think, an advanced opportunity for those students to learn about new career opportunities before they get to eighth or ninth grade. So I would say those are the two main things that have been happening.
Thank you, Mr. Mott.
Do we have another board representative for the LCTI? I know Mr. Mond is one of the representatives, but I know due to the population of our students who
Dr. Wayak, one moment.
I'm due to
I will be
the,
attending the meeting on Wednesday because we have not had anybody else step up. So this Wednesday is the LCTI meeting. I will be there representing the board. We are still looking for somebody to replace me, so if we have anybody interested, please let me know. At this point, nobody has expressed interest, Ms. Gaiman. Dr. Wayak?
I want to give this board an update from the Lehigh Public Library. There was a meeting last Monday, monthly meeting.
Dr.
I can't hear him.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Yeah.
You can't hear me at all?
Wait, try again. Just for a moment, we heard you.
Sure. Sure. Can you hear me okay now?
Move your speaker to the bottom.
Okay. All right, try it now.
Sure. Can you hear me now? Is this better?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Hang on. Try again.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Got it. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
With technical
So,
support from Mrs. Reinhardt there, we're able to hear you.
Awesome. Great. Sorry about that. So there was a meeting last Monday in the Southern Lehigh Public Library. As this board, I think, is aware, there was some back and forth between Lower Salton Township and Upper Salton Township and the Southern Lehigh Public Library. The previous, there was a $250,000, what's the right term? I guess a agreement with a $75,000 a year 10-year agreement that was offered by Lower Salton. That agreement did lapse. It expired, and so the Southern Lehigh Public Library has organized a subcommittee to look into the feasibility of getting this as a potential for the future. So there will not be any further discussion until that committee goes through the appropriate process to determine if it's even feasible. We talk about the benefits and the liability absorbing any Lower Salton Township residents. So that was a large part of the discussion at the last meeting. Also, Ms. Sager, Lynette Sager, who is the library director, she has put in her resignation as of June 30th. So there will be the library will be looking for a new director.
If you turn this, I just still can't hear.
I think the best thing to do here is because people are hearing you intermittently, it's fading in and out, is that perhaps at our next board meeting, which will be in August, that you can provide a summary of all the library activities. Okay? Thanks, Dr. Wales.
Yes, thank you,
Sorry
Dr.
it's
Wayak.
not
We're having some
working out.
trouble here on this end.
Okay. And with that, do we have any visitor comments? Okay, we are adjourned at 7:34.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wayak.